It's a little cold because it's nighttime, so I thought I'd wear this, which is linen, which is supposed to be very healing, but also not supposed to be mixed with other materials. Anyhow, I went and bought it at a fabric store because purchasing it as something already is pretty expensive. So it was a way to still get the material by saving some cost, and I was going to make something, and I still might. Anyhow, just explaining this, which I don't need to, but there you go, because it's linen, so I want to share it with y'all. Okay, so, man, I had to get on. I typically don't do nighttime videos, but today is the day. Did you all know? So, I did a little research because in my last video at the end, I had a reading and I mentioned a goddess. And I thought I did a video about her, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just did my own little side research. But the goddess's name, so I'm going to hold up the card again. Tlazolteotl which means restoration and transformation. So I did some research. I went to Google, and I'll take you on the path because hopefully we can do it together. And I went to Google and I put in her name to learn some more about her. Let's see, it's probably been a while, so I'm going to put her name in again. Okay, so I put in her name, and then her name comes up on Wikipedia. So I click on that one, and there it goes into how it's pronounced, which I'm doing the best I can. And then member of, what did I click on? I feel like that's it. Member of the Yes. Okay. So I went to the Wikipedia. I'm going to go back and zoom in. And she's deemed as the goddess of but there's many other attributions given to her. So I click on her name, and it says how her name is pronounced, and it basically says she is a deity of vice, purification, steam baths, lust, filth, and a patroness of adulterers, which, okay. Anyhow, she's known by 3 names. She who eats filthy stuff, and the unaliving caused by lust, and another name that is the deity of cotton. Okay, and so the latter, the deity of cotton, refers to the quadripartite association of the 4 sister deities. And so this is Aztec mythology, which is what we're told, Aztec mythology, but is also a member of the Tlazoleotl Goddess. So I'm going to just show you that name. And so I click on that, because what is that? Okay, what is that? So the Tlazoleotl is Olmechi, Olmechutli, and Olmechihatl, or Tlazolteotl and Tlazolteotl, who govern the divine nature divided into two deities or two gods. It is convenient to know man and woman, right? So they're broken up into a male deity and a female deity. But what I really focused on was, let's see. It is convenient to know that man and woman, the man who created and governed everything. This is what I'm reading from here. That is of the masculine gender, and the woman, everything that belonged to the feminine gender. Olmechitl, for her part, gave birth to many children on the 13 heavens with the Olmechitli, and after all these births she had given birth to a flint, which in their language they call Tekpatl, from which the other gods are amazed and frightened. Their children agree to throw it out into the heavens to the said flint, and thus they put into action, and that it fell in certain part of the earth called Chitzomazatok, which means 7 caves. And that then 1,600 gods and goddesses came out of it. The Tlazolteotl that spread over the face of the earth, the sea, the underworld, and the heavens. Okay, hopefully I paused that in time. Oh, man. Poor cat. So, I read all that because when I first was checking her out, it says a Aztec goddess. Then we go a little further and it's Olmechi. But when you go here, so if I click on Olmechitli, it comes back to Aztec mythology and the Tlazolteotl, the other name. And then it says most colonial manuscripts equate him with Olmechitli, his consort. So are the Olmecs the names of deities? The names of certain deities? And then is that the ultimate link to both the Aztecs and the Mayans? And then this came from the goddess's name, and she's a great creator. She's considered one of the great creators and the mother of these children, the mother of these 13 heavens, and that's where she resides. And then she's self-created. There are no parents. And the consort is the other name. And then when you see the picture, so here's a picture. So I'm leading this in because I'm going to get into another goddess, okay? I'm leading this in also because of how deities have been redepicted, like on so many different levels. And I'll pause this because redepicted on so many different levels. But curiously, what is hard to tell is which one is the masculine, or male, so to speak, or female. Okay? That's the two deities that are also, and I pointed out. So you see that they're sitting on cheetah looking, so on top of a lion, which we see in many depictions of deities, of goddesses on lions or with lions' feet. And then the hair looks like it's in locks. And then we have a third eye type of adornment that also kind of looks like a bird. They're both wearing something similar. Maybe just how they're sitting. maybe they're hand gestures. And we see this hand gesture all over in Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism. You see these hand gestures as well. And so I was pretty taken aback, because the other thing is finding, because as I've told you, the message, and just with my own personal thinking, is everything comes from the mother. Everything begins with the mother. Everything starts with the divine mother. And those giant Olmechi heads or Olmec heads that they've been finding, I've been saying, because I learned this through reading Mama Zogbe's book, May She Rest in Power, about the Sibyls. And they talk about how, and I've done a video about this separately, but talking about how some of the ancient divine feminine were portrayed masculinely, and then also there is females who present with a lot of hair on their bodies, who literally have beards, okay, and so, or mustaches, like heavy mustaches. And there are different times throughout our culture where that was considered not just attractive and beautiful, but also considered something not normal, but not unaccepted. It was accepted. And actually, some of the females were given privileges that only males had, because they had this facial hair and looked more masculine. So these deities that they're finding heads of, so if we're figuring out that certain names of certain indigenous groups also match with certain names of gods and goddesses that we've been taught, this little this is always going, like, through the mother is always like showing me these different things. And this brought me to the Olmechi, and that's like the short name. And the Olmechi are actually names of deities. So is that also it? Did we name ourselves after deities? Okay, so I think that was mostly that one. So this led me, then I went into YouTube a couple days later and put in something along the lines of like American gods and goddesses. And I think sometimes, depending on what you watch on a regular, will also feed your algorithm, because I was talking to one of my friends and it didn't show up for her, but she put in the same thing. And I'm going to post the video right now onto my channel. And I suggest slowing it down because it's a very short video. And guess, did you all know? I didn't know this. We're going to go into, I'm just so perplexed, and it's going to give me so much more information to go off of. Did you know that America used to be called Columbia? And not because of Columbus. That is a myth. There are records showing that Columbia, which is a goddess's name, or the goddess Columbia, was the name of the Americas. So I find that interesting, because we actually have in South America, the country is called Colombia. That's not an America. It's Americas, the lands of the Americas, but it doesn't. Doesn't Mexico and the people, or not Mexico, but the people of Guatemala? Oh my gosh, good goddess. The people of Colombia. When was that name actually given? Is it, and you see what I'm saying? Because we have already gone into the story of Columbus. If you don't know, evidence has been brought that Columbus was actually not his full name. His name was different, and that we all know that there was a peoples here before the discovery of the Americas. So, Goddess Columbia was the name of the Americas before America. Okay, so I'll share this video. Okay, I posted it. Y'all, I did not know. So think about it. There's a link between this goddess and the Statue of Liberty. So I'm going to play some of it. It is on the channel Obscure Histories. This video was made 2 years ago. Okay. So there's a specific spot. I'm going to pause it and show. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit. So Columbia has been depicted in many ways, and the way that we see her today is not how she was originally presented. There is a statue of Columbia on top of the Capitol, on top of the White House, Capitol building. It is named the District of Columbia. We have the Columbia River Gorge on the West Coast. There is Columbia Pictures in Hollywood, and we'll see usages of certain deities, specifically the female deities, like you'll see on the logo for Starbucks, right? And there's others, but these are representations of the Great Mother, Mami Wata, and the Great Mother Teacher. And so Columbia has also been called alma mater. So you'll hear people who graduate from certain colleges and they'll say, my alma mater is, and they'll name a school. Well, I recognized mater to mean mother in Latin, so I looked up what alma is, and alma is nourishing mother. And Columbia she was literally named the Goddess of America, depicted with feathers, a headdress, brown, wearing the kind of like Greek looking garb, so to speak, or a type of dress, either sandals or barefoot, always with either a sword, a torch, or some type of rod, a shield, and depicted all over the place. So to me, this is some solidification in the idea that the Americas were matriarchal and predominantly, it was known that way, it was like seen that way. And then also the link to said Tartaria, or that time of Tartaria, where you see those amazing buildings and architecture and healing, basically cities, not just palace. These had to be cities, some type of cities. So I'm going to show you something, because what? Okay, so here's one of the depictions, and we've seen this before, especially if you watch anyone like Kiomero or any of the teachers teaching about the indigenous Americas and the truth about indigenous peoples all around the world. Okay, so I have to cover this up a little bit, but it says often this female America was depicted as an idealized indigenous woman. Okay? Oops. And she's been lightened. Okay? The feather headdress. Okay, bows and arrows on the back. She has a kind of like leaf skirt. There is a crescent moon with, there's a crescent moon with angels above her. Okay, and that's something else you see in the Tartarian art and this is a 17th century picture. And so I don't want to, please check out the video. And then also, okay, so the next part I want to show is, okay, so the Lilliput. This is called Samuel Johnson's Debate in the Senate of Great Lilliput. So according to this part, And this is in that little video, and I paused it and zoomed in because it says that Samuel Jackson most likely coined the name Columbia in 1738 after Columbus for America, but she was already called Columbia. And what he says is he speaks of this is such a trip because even the number of the page is kind of a trip. But he speaks of there was a continual war betwixt the Lilliputians, which is Lilliput, Lilith, okay, the Lilliputians and Iberians in Colombia. So how many of you have taken the DNA test and have it come back saying that you're Iberian, and they were telling us that Iberia is somewhere over in the Middle East? In Colombia, which is the other name for America, while both powers were at peace in Degulia. So there's another place here called Degulia. And so again, we have the IA, regardless of, so we have some scholars and writers saying that Columbia came from Columbus and that they female, gave it a feminine name by adding the IA, the LIA, instead of Columbus, giving it a goddess's name. And we'll see a lot of names all around the world with IA at the end of it. And my theory is that, yes, they were named after the queens and the goddesses that once ruled and had authority over those certain areas. And so the Iberian part is really interesting to me because it, to me, brings it all back to the Americas and Colombia. And then we'll go into a little bit of the aspects behind this goddess of America, aka Columbia. So again, you see these statues all over. And the idea was that she was liberty and she was love, she was freeness and abundance. And very, very protective of those coming to the Americas. Very protective of immigrants. And they weren't brown. They were pale immigrants. German and Dutch. German, Italian. Well, Italians aren't always pale. German, Italian, and Chinese. And there are depictions of her like standing in front of the Chinese defending them. And we start kind of getting this link of when things started looking more pale and less brown and less indigenous and more Greek, so to speak. So I'm gonna go grab something that one of my friends, when they went to Greece, brought back as a gift for me. And this is just as a reminder because I'm pretty sure I did a video on this also. This is from Athens. This is supposed to be Athena. So when we hear people say kind of transformed into a Greek goddess or represents looking like a Greek goddess, we're being shown what is more modern. But Athens is named for Athena. You see what I'm saying? Athens is named for Athena. So they're constantly showing us and telling us. We have these depictions of Columbia everywhere. And then there's the fade into Lady Liberty. So in the other videos saying that, they're kind of telling us. So if we have Lady Liberty, she's depicted as a indigenous woman, an Aboriginal woman of the Americas, Columbia, and then is transformed into a less goddess knowledgeable continent or country. And then we have the Statue of Liberty, which is copper. So it's a copper goddess who is chained to a star fort. And in videos I did several years ago, I talked about the true spell is the usurpation and magic of the Great Mother that no one is recognizing is actually hers. This is the Americas. The goddess of the Americas is Columbia. And then if you go by kind of the ideas of Columbia, and you go with the feminine, because she's also known as the gem of the sea and the alma mater. Like, we're constantly being shown what is happening with Mother's knowledge and energy. And the basis of this entire country's idealism came from Goddess Columbia. This righteous, beautiful, abundant, giving goddess. And then there's this poem that was written by a brown woman, and they're in this they're calling her African American. But the way that she writes this poem, it sounds to me like she's speaking about her people, the indigenous people, and pleading to Washington to stop it, basically, or to give credit back to the mothers who deserve it. And then we have Lilliput peoples and the Iberians. So I want to get that book, or if anybody has access to that book, it's Debates in the Senate of Great Lilliput, and I looked it up. So I'm interested in getting it, because what I keep seeing is these very close links to the Americas and the indigenous mothers, yet it keeps getting like skipped over because we are so indoctrinated in the patriarchal history or the patriarchal writings or teachings or education, any of that. So to me, this just kind of shows me again through Mother's unique way of who we are, who the truth about the Americas and the truth about goddesses and the goddess energy and the goddess messages. So I just wanted to share that with you. I'm going to do a tiny bit on the calendar because I need to just do straight up videos talking about the moon on a regular, because it's the moon. It's around the new moon. Our calendar is around the moon. And then we have, do you know how many calendars there are? There's over 400 calendars in use today. So, and then in my other video, I was talking about how maybe we should include the moon with astrology, realizing we only know astrology due to the moon, due to night time. So why are we so focused on the sun? And then I saw something else where it shows how the moon goes in a month, and it goes like this. So it looks like a snake. It goes like this. Almost like a swirl and a snake. And I thought, I wonder if they really studied the moon and applied it to, say, like the serpent mound. I wonder if the moon would follow the shape of the serpent mound. Because the tail curves around the moon, doesn't it? People have been saying it's the sun. Because I also mentioned in the Ojibwe culture, most of their words are around the moon. So like the names of the seasons are around the moon. What is happening with the moon. Moon, moon, can I say it some more? Moon. Okay, so I'll grab that real quickly here and let you know. So today is, and I heard that there was a sun flare today, which may be true. So if you're feeling really like sleepy and lethargic and you almost feel like you cannot stay awake, that could be because of a solar flare. Solar flares are known to do that, especially to highly sensitive people. It's like maybe yesterday you had a lot of energy, and then today you're like, yeah, I just meh. So whenever you're watching this, just know that maybe you could look back to the day if you're, if it's a couple days later, and think about how you might have been feeling today, November 15th. The Friday night, feeling right. Okay, and the energy, according to the moon, and we'll do a little class on how I've figured this out. Because I have an app that I can no longer find. So it's on my old phone and I keep it on there. But it's the moon phases. And it lets you know basically when there's a new moon. It lets you just know each day what phase the moon is in. To our eyes from Earth. Right? Because when you start going into the idea of what these planets' movements are, it's different. It's different timing, and this is why there's so many different calendars, okay? So today, Neptune and Jupiter, so we have some watery, deep, very, and then we have Venus with the Gregorian calendar. Friday is always Venus. And then we have Neptune and Jupiter. So the Neptune and Jupiter, yeah, watery, kind of heavy. And let's see. Pause. That's what I'm hearing. I hear like pausing energy. Like catching your breath in the water, maybe, so to speak. Or you just made it to the surface after being underwater for a while. Also, bringing water in for helping with healing and cooling, especially this time of year. Actually, hot, cool plunges. Cold, stimulating your body with cold. Even if it's cold outside, it's very, very good for your immune system. I've heard. I'm not a doctor. And yeah, a pause also within the feminine divine consciousness, because a great shift is happening and has been happening, and there is more to come, is what I keep hearing. There's more, is kind of like something else is going to happen, or I don't know. I feel like something very theatrical is going to happen. I've just stopped paying any attention to anything on the news right now. Okay. Also, I want to end this video. I'll be going into more of indigenous great mothers and deities and creator gods, because the more and more I dig, the more and more there is a link to all the other stories, all the other deities, and they're totally left out. All the other ones have been popularized, like Athena and Isis, but we have Pachamama. Pachamama has remained in the mainstream names. Mama Kocha and Mama K and Mami Wata, Jamanja. So we have a lot of representations. Minerva. We have a lot of representations that are prominent, that we see regularly, as far as, I say Minerva, but that's really Mama Kocha. So when it comes to the indigenous Americans and their creator deities, there's a lot of similarities to the many other deities, and a link to the Aboriginal peoples of this continent. And that's what it's brought me to. Like, I'm wearing my feathers. I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna be straight up about who I am, who we are. I'm done letting them kind of dictate behavior based on false histories and false stories about great mothers. So That's my rebellion at this time. And then just continuing what we already got going on. Continuing sharing her, focusing on her, focusing on us, focusing on the truth of her and the truth of us, especially within the Americas, these two continents. Because I just wonder, because Columbus is supposed to be Italian, and if South America was taken over by Spain, they're not going to, well, Spain sent, the story is Spain sent Columbus. Would they name a whole country after him? And it's still Columbia, to the goddess. So there's not a lot of information. A lot of the information that comes back is kind of what I've shared on my community. So I'm hoping more shows up. I would like to get that book because it should give some example. But I mentioned the Columbia Gorge because of, and then also Khalifa. So is there a whole link also to the Amazons? Oh, that's it. So Wonder Woman would be a depiction of Columbia, especially with the red, white, and blue. And then we know what the Amazons go back to. So, okay. All right, so I'm shuffling. I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, okay. Well, it's like, how do you stay female focused in a world that wants you to do the opposite, right? I looked up some points about our country's decision making when it comes to certain things, and there's things the communities can do. I just don't know if they have the time or the energy to be able to do it. And that's the other thing. Like, if you're working all the time and you have to make sure that you provide for yourself and your family, when do you have time to go to your government officials or go do the things that need to be done to make the big changes within the systems? That's on purpose. Okay, so interesting. So I'm shuffling. I haven't chosen this card, but in between, look who showed up. Athena. And see how she's portrayed as compared to this Athena? Just saying. Wisdom and knowledge, and there's the owl, which relates back to Lilith. And then is that why the owl? Because the Lily 2 people are in Columbia, aka the Americas, and there are a lot of mothers who had owls and hawks and such as their quote-unquote familiars or their pets or animals or friends, so to speak. All right. Can I predict that a little bit? I don't know what shows. Okay, what do we get? Kali, endings and beginnings. And then what's at the bottom? Basset. So Kali, endings and beginnings. Card of the evening to share with you all. And I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, and there's so much. There's not a lot to say right now as far as like healing words other than recognize, like, again, what's happening with emotions and impulses. And again, as long as there's an outside controller of emotions that focus on spending, on just because something happens. Like, I'll admit for myself during this time, I was like, I should get a bottle of wine. And then my body's like, please do not get any wine. And I'm like, okay, right? But the old me might have pushed past that, kind of like giving into the emotions of what weren't really mine. right? And I see this as a pattern showing how the emotions of the peoples are constantly, it's a constant thing, because otherwise we start remembering, we stop doing things that might contribute, we start giving back to ourselves and to each other, and we work on our elemental gifts. We start recognizing our elemental gifts, because elemental. Some people may not even recognize their elemental gifts because they're so busy focused on said career or family or job. You know, I say career, but sometimes it's a job that keeps you focused. So, and not that family isn't a, you know, important. It is also an example of how our emotions can be sometimes not really our own. And that's something that I talk about on my Patreon, and I'll be doing something there also, just kind of like to help move through this, because movement is super important. Anyhow, side note shares. Okay, so Kali, I apologize, and thanks for listening to that and being here and sharing and all that you do to support me on this channel, and then keep going. So Kali, endings and beginnings. Okay, she's a Hindu goddess and provides the libertarian form of ego. So this is where we can see where, like, the righteous rage of Kali, because anger can stem action. Okay. We already know that she has her trophies that symbolize how she has able to push through her emotions, right? That's how she liberated her children from attachment, right? And there has been some idea of association with unaliving, but in actuality, it is the death or the unaliving of certain egos, certain ideas of control that are not ours. And so she's also a representation of the enlightened darkness, where darkness, or the feminine divine righteousness and authority, can push enlightenment, basically, or like knowledge, certain gifts of knowing, evolution, personal evolution. Okay, that's the words in the book. I like that. Okay, you are an eternal sacred being whose attachments to people, things, and events are constantly shifting and changing. This is where she's being called, and this could be a little bit of the Jupiter energy for today, and even Venus energy, is a sense of responsibility, but don't take responsibility when it is not yours. If someone is feeling some kind of way and they aren't able to communicate well, and you're empathetic and you're aware of emotions, try not to take on responsibility that isn't yours. Like, it's not my responsibility what's going on in the world. My responsibility is only to myself. And so we get caught up also in, or to myself, and the things that I have chosen to take responsibility for. And so we can get caught up sometimes in obligation, feelings like, oh, we have to do it because this is our family, friend, partner. And I'm not talking about compromise. I'm talking, or shared responsibility. I'm talking about ultimately, like, taking on responsibility that literally is not yours. Kali can help you with that. Kali can help break that. Okay, that energy. And do not fear the dark, as it holds the secrets for release into freeness and greater knowledge. Okay. Some stones you can use: onyx, smoky quartz, tourmaline, obsidian, kunzite. Stones stones bring in just so much extra stuff if you want to. And then her back sister, I think we had Basset last time. So it's just a little backing to the last reading I shared with you all, Guardian and Protectress. And these are both divine feminine ideals and internalized truths as a reminder, especially if you're going through any type of emotional reverberation. Okay? And that is today's share. Goddess Columbia and Goddess Tlazolteotl. The languages we used to speak. Oh my goodness. All right, fam. Until next time, take care.